What's up, dudes? Welcome back to another episode of Rhomas Men's Team. Pretty simple. We are a group of guys helping each other make progress towards each other's goals. If you're new to the channel, awesome and welcome. If you want to help support the channel and join our pro team, head over to rhomasteam.com/pro, where you can contribute to us on a donation basis. We also give you access to exclusive content, mastermind groups, etc., etc. So anyway, hope you enjoy this episode, and we'll see you on the team. All right, we are back in action. Mr. Larry, Rhomas Men's Team. We help men make progress. It's a circle, not a triangle. Mr. Larry, what's up, brother?
Well, it's a great day. Been looking forward to this, and I'm glad I had the opportunity to join you guys this morning. This, for me anyway, this morning.
I know Larry's not going to say this, but it is Larry's birthday, so happy birthday, my friend. And very much appreciate you being here on this special day. You got any big plans?
Yeah. I'm gonna just wallow in the opportunities that present themselves. Gonna have a nice lunch. We got a dinner planned. Gonna get some new tires on the car. You know, all those exciting things.
Yeah. If you don't mind me asking, where are you going to lunch?
Palomino's.
I've never been there. Interesting. I'm a big fan of Malibu Farm in Newport. It's one of my favorite spots.
Yeah, I haven't spent much time there too. Some new Mexican restaurant.
Yeah, heck yeah. All right, so I've been getting into dissecting stories, and I thought it'd be a pretty interesting topic for the men here today. The reason I'm looking into them is because for presentations and so on to crowds that you don't know and they don't know you, it's really important to have an origin story and how do you construct that story and so on, just so you can expedite them learning about you. Because of the building a business, it's, how to get the audience to know you, like you, trust you, and feel that you're competent, et cetera. There's a handful of other things that go into it, but it's really empowering going through, or if you ever go work with a branding coach, actually walking through and dissecting your own story. It's really empowering, even if you don't own a business. Because we all have our own stories. It's just that very few of us have actually organized those thoughts into an efficient, powerful narrative to remind us and those around us. So I wanted to open up the floor and go into this today and start with a framework. In my opinion, storytelling is very much like dancing. It's the general population feels like, oh, my friend just naturally can dance and I just don't have it in my DNA. It's like, no, you just never we're never taught to, or you used to dance and then somebody laughed at you one day and you stopped, something like that. So anyway, I want to put this framework on here. I've been studying Casey Neistat and a few other people and listening to their interviews. I probably put, over the last couple of weeks, probably 12+ hours into it. And I want to boil it down for you guys, and we can always add on to this. But let's start with our origin story. Really important for your origin story, and if you look at Marvel comics, et cetera, they do the same thing. So first is you break it down into 3 sections. Might sound so obvious, but very few people know this. 3 sections. You've got Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. The simplest form of storytelling, right, is setup, conflict, resolution. That's the baseline. If you've ever heard of Hero's Journey, they follow very similar things, but they have more integrated into those 3 acts. So if you watch Casey Neistat's videos on YouTube, this is how he sets up his framework. This is from his mouth. So Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. So setup, conflict, resolution. I'm probably going to severely, discredit myself here, but I have a tradition of watching Hallmark Christmas movies with my grandmother and my mother. And I'm the one who requests to watch them, which is the embarrassing part. But every single one of them, right, set up, big time lawyer in New York City, girl, has, is always a bridesmaid, never a bride, almost by her own doing because she chooses her career over love, right? That's the setup. Then you have the conflict, which is she, starts to get the feeling because she goes home for Christmas in her dad's bakery and runs into Jimmy, her old her old high school sweetheart, starts to get the feeling that maybe she made the wrong decision. Jimmy convinces her while her car broke down and she cannot escape from small town, right? Convinces her that maybe she does have feelings and wants to have a child one day, blah, 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 build a family. And then the resolution is the change, right? Okay, decides to stay home, gets married, now runs her dad's bakery, blah, 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 right? So that's the resolution. Anyway, I will pause there. Larry, storytelling and origin stories help you in your life and or business? And do you want to add or delete to any of that framework?
I think a great origin story I heard was when I first met you and listened to you talk about why you're in the business you're in. I thought it was amazing. And now that you've added another 12 hours to the party as far as research, it's going to be on steroids. I've got, I've two origin stories. One origin story to talk to people about creating financial returns and creating a business, and another origin story about why I got into the work I got into. So depending on what the calling is, and I think that the essential element too in the origin story that I have heard that I didn't hear you say is don't make yourself the hero. And the reason behind that is it's kind of a turnoff to the audience, because now it almost sounds like, can you top this one? Are you this good? I'm the one who saved the day. And I think there's an element where you want the hero's part in there, but you want the audience to see you as the hero, not you articulating that because of you, all these amazing things happened. I think that's another element that's really important. So,
agreed.
I would throw that in.
Yeah, and I want to bring this up as well because some of the guys might be thinking, "Oh, well, how's this relevant to me?" And this is the whole point: is that life is super hard right now, or ever was hard. That's what makes the great fucking story. Right? There is no hero without the dragon, right? There is no winner without the obstacle, etc. And the other thing is, you also don't have to win or be winning right now. It's if you ever watch, I think it's Rocky 1. Is it Rocky 1? He did not win. Sorry for anybody who's not watched it and is planning on watching it tomorrow. He did not win. But the reason it was attractive was because he was an underdog who tried as hard as he could, which now I want to sprinkle in some other stuff. In the transition from Act 1 to Act 2, et cetera, it's really important. If you want to get really detailed, you show, number one, the aha epiphany, and you show the montage after the epiphany, right? So I had this aha because of this call to action and or because of the conflict. And I then decided, I reached the fork in the road. I'm either going to stay a slob and who's not accepting responsibility, or I'm going to take responsibility for becoming the next leader of my family. And if you want to like really put the detail in there, like Stephen King style, right? Like you get into the detail, right? Like it was a cold, stormy night. I was walking out in the rain and I didn't even have a rain jacket and so on. And that's where I decided and like, blah, 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 right? And then following that, montage. So think about the Rocky montage. All of a sudden he's doing one-arm push-ups, right? And he can barely do two. And then as it goes on, he's doing pull-ups and he's punching the raw meat, blah, 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 whatever. And then towards the end of the montage, he's a beast. He's doing 2,000 one-arm push-ups, et cetera, right? And then he goes in to fight Apollo Creed. Anyway, just to add some more flavor there. But then to Larry, to your point, what I really like at the end of Act 3, especially when you're talking to other people, or in a business presentation or just at a family barbecue, yeah, it's a little pretentious, if not a lot pretentious to say like, yeah, and here I am, this hero, versus the punctuation being, the reason I'm telling you this is so you can learn from my story and use it for yourself. Yeah. Right? So something like that. Phil, let me throw the mic over to you, buddy. As we talk about origin stories, number one, do any origin stories inspire you? And force yourself, do you feel like you have any origin stories or maybe living through one currently?
Yeah, can you guys hear me? Hopefully my internet
Yeah,
works.
man.
Yeah, origin stories are super inspiring to me. I actually am a huge fan of Casey Neistat, and I've watched tons of his videos. I love this one talk he gave. It I don't remember what conference, but it talked. He explained his whole origin story. Um, and it's just unbelievably inspiring, because he had a son when he was like 15 or 16 or something, and was just like totally screwed um,
Yep.
financially forever because of that, and really like fought his way out of that. And he's definitely an incredible storyteller. Um, Origin stories I'm going through. I mean,
Or have gone through.
or have gone through. What does that mean exactly?
I mean,
Like,
so I think
like
there's several. The guy that I was listening to this morning, he's saying you basically have like several stories in your life, and it's a matter of going through and being introspective and finding those stories. So you could have an origin story to anything. You could have an origin story to why you now play basketball, or an origin story of like why you're now a writer, or an origin story of like why are you today. So there's a whole bunch of stories that we have that if we just take them the time to recapture and relive and then articulate those moments, it can be really powerful for nobody for anybody else, for you. Like, oh shit, I'm a human being and I'm powerful because I got through these things.
yeah, I mean, I guess, man, it's really why it bothers me as soon as I try to start saying it. It really makes me really uncomfortable, and the reason why is just because like I I I I have fantasies in my head, embarrassingly like grandiose fantasies in my head, like every day, almost every day. Like it's really ridiculous how much time I spend fantasizing about I did this and I'm awesome and everyone loves me. It's like ridiculous how much time I do that. And doing it out loud on camera is really embarrassing. But
Mm-hmm.
um I yeah, I mean I did, I released a game that wasn't a total failure while I was living in my car, which was pretty crazy. And right after right after I released it, I really screwed up and let the engine of my car completely die. And then I was living in it's really crazy actually. Cause my engine was almost dead. It was like, it was, knocking like crazy anytime I would drive it. And, my friend was like, don't drive it on the freeway. And I was like, okay, I didn't even think about it. And I drove it on the freeway. And that's a really bad idea because of the force it requires an engine to produce to drive on the freeway. And that killed it completely. And it killed it in the most, it's crazy because I was being so dumb to put myself in that situation. And then I was being so dumb to let my engine die. And then I was being so dumb to kill it off completely that it's just crazy how lucky I got. And I remember, Wes, you were saying sometimes, I mean, it's just luck. But you were saying like sometimes when stuff has to happen the right way, and then it does, and it's really ridiculous how lucky I got because my car died. I was the reason I took it on the freeways because I had a gym membership that I was showering at the gym, and I was where my car was at the time was like a couple was pretty far. It was too far to walk to the gym. It was like way too far. It was like 10-minute drive, but I was like 10 minutes on the freeway, so it was like really far away, and I couldn't shower, and I was basically just sleeping in my car, not doing anything because I couldn't use my car to work anymore. Um, and I drove it south to the gym, and then it just completely died, and it died like a half mile from the gym, and I pushed my car through the roads, like through the streets. And this guy, it was crazy because I wouldn't have been able to do that because the road started going uphill very slightly, and even the slightest incline when you're trying to push a car makes it completely impossible. And this guy helped me. It was crazy. This random guy saw me pushing my car through the middle of the road, and he was like some like 40-year-old dude, and he was like, "Yo, do you need a tow truck or whatever?" And I was like, just yelling at him while still pushing. I was like, "Dude, I gotta keep pushing this. I don't have any money. I can't stop or whatever. And he helped me push it. It was just crazy because it was like we were both completely dead by the time, but we pushed it into this parking lot, barely made it there, and then I don't know. Yeah, it was crazy. And then I slept in my car for a few days. I was basically just waiting for the place where I sell my game to pay me, because they pay at the end of the month or whatever. So I was waiting for $3,500 when I had like $150 or whatever, and I had like no way to really do anything. And I was just sleeping in my car. It was a very, weird time to be in that situation. And then I was scared that the parking lot I was sleeping in wasn't really the safest place, and I was worried they might send a tow truck or something. So I figured out I needed to push it all the way around the block to the gym parking lot, which I knew was fairly chill, and I could stay there. And I met this giant homeless guy who was like 6'5", and I paid him like $20 to help me push it around the block. And I would have been fucked again there too. I would have been, if I didn't ask him. I was thinking of just doing it myself, and I would have been fucked, because it was just, there's a few places where it's just impossible. It's so weird how even if your car has momentum, if there is the tiniest incline at all, you can't, it just stops and you're fucked. And my car would have been stuck in the middle of the road. Anyways, these are the hijinks of a fucking idiot. And somehow made it through that. But
Wes,
yeah, that was it was a weird time.
You and Phil have a lot in common, man. Like, and me and Phil, like, we all have like car breakdown debacles that are part of our origin story. Like Phil just said in a self-deprecating and untrue way that these are the hijinks, in a funny way, these are the hijinks of an idiot. But like, Wes, your origin story, a very important part of the way you tell your origin story is the Hyundai Sonata with no AC, trying to get your grandma to the airport, like on fumes, and right, because that doesn't just highlight that you're broke and that you didn't plan ahead for gas. It shows like the risks you're willing to take, how important taking care of your family is to you, right? Like, you're not just describing an event; it is you're telling a story that about your values, right? And I'm sorry for being late in my connectivity issues. Again, Phil and I have more in common than he wants to believe. But
I fixed my connectivity issues.
I can't.
Yo, Ray, stop lumping me in with you fucking asshole. God damn.
Okay, dude. Okay. I deserve that. Wes, I'll just continue to talk to you. We have the power to write our origin story. That's what I love. This isn't a judge reading out a guilty verdict. We have the power to write it and frame it, which is something John mentioned in the comments, and shape it. We can talk about whatever obstacles, wins and losses that we want. We get to tell this to others, but most importantly, we get to tell this to ourselves. Right? Again, because Wes, you're not like when I hear about your Hyundai Sonata, like you can't afford gas, can't afford a new car, can't afford the AC. Like, I'm not hearing what a broke loser you are. I'm hearing about your values and your determination to climb out of poverty and take care of your family.
Yeah. I mean, and to like, even listening to Phil's story, right? There's things that Phil, just so you know, the way it's landing to me, a couple really interesting takeaways. Number one, what you said in the beginning was that you have these grandiose visions, but somehow you have these emotions pushing against you because maybe you don't feel like you're worthy of them, or it feels weird to say to other people, but you're now having the balls to say some of this stuff out loud. So I wonder how many goals and dreams are lost because of the devil on the other shoulder saying, no, you're not good enough, or that's stupid if you think that's meant for other people. Like, all these things that stop it at the seed, sort of a thing. But then, Phil, you pushing through and actually finishing your game despite the other side of your brain saying you're never going to finish this, nobody's ever going to look at it, and so on. And then all of a sudden you've got thousands of dollars coming to you from the creation of that in your fucking car. right? Like, and whether or not you want to admit it and give yourself credit for it, that inspires other people. I guarantee you, 100%.
Well, think about that classic statement he made. I've got to keep pushing. And calling on all his resources internally, in spite of the scenario, is courage, and it's innate. As we're talking, and I want to hear talking. It just came to me that each day we have an origin story. We woke up, we met a challenge, we found out how we dealt with it. We either ran away from it, inebriated ourselves through it, or we conquered it. And I think sometimes we pass through that too quickly. We don't give ourselves the credit. Like listening to Phil, that was very inspirational. And it's unfortunate that sometimes we can't see the forest for the trees. After heroism, he uses a statement of something an idiot would do. And what he shared was genius. And I think that's that whole element where, why do we have such difficulty giving ourselves credit? And I think that's another topic at some point too. But I just wanted to throw that out, that each day is an origin story when we look at it.
And Larry, the other thing I loved about Phil's, what Phil shared is that whatever obstacles he has faced, Larry, have not embittered him. Like he still obviously has a faith in humanity. The way those various characters in his story, acted as good Samaritans, helped him out, right? And so, like, I love the optimism. Like, there's a tension in origin stories, in a hero's journey, right, between the obstacles that could break him and the optimism he must retain in order to succeed.
Yeah.
Well, and how about this? That even if the road is at a 5-degree incline, right? It's weird how a complete stranger just shows up to help you.
Yeah.
Like there's something empowering, right? Like an inspiring dynamic there.
The first guy that offered to help me, he was just like, he got out of his car. I think he was with his girlfriend or his wife or something. And I told him a bunch of times, I was like, I'm just pushing it. And, if you want to help me push, it's fine. He helped me, but we were both like totally dead by the time. So it was pretty crazy. And then he gave me $40, which was pretty crazy.
Yeah.
That may be his origin story of his the first date girlfriend. Be like, oh my gosh, he got out. Help this guy.
That's $40. It's more evidence that the universe is conspiring to do us good if we'll give it credit.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I've had those moments where I was driving a colleague home from work in a car much like this, like a beat up, like last car on the lot, used Mercedes, and it ran out of gas, and I was pushing it like rush hour into a parking lot, and all of a sudden it got super light and easy to push. And I was thinking, it's like kind of like if someone's drowning and they just give in and they kind of feel this kind of peaceful, like weightlessness. It kind of felt like that. And I was like, I have super strength. What it was 3 guys came up and helped me push, and I didn't even see them. Right? And those were angels, man. And like, you don't have to believe in God or angels, but like that's how I remember them, and that's exactly what I'm hearing from Phil. Who do we have on the call? Is that Ben, or who do we got here? Who's the
close? It's Pablo.
Maroon Grebe.
Oh yeah. Hi. I don't want to interrupt or interject. This is my first time here. I've been listening to the. Thank you very much.
Special Forces by your hat. Thank you for your service. And go for it, man. Tell us about your origin story, or how you feel about origin stories, or anything else you want to talk about.
Well, the coincidence that you had me on this particular podcast, like my hobby is writing, and another podcast I follow is one called "You Are a Storyteller," which is hosted by this gentleman who was Brian McDonald. He was a professional in Hollywood, not famous or anything, but a working professional, and he talks a lot about the structure of story, which has helped me writing, but also In my life, um, if I had to summarize like an origin story right now, I would say I'm a young man who has. I feel like I've squandered my inheritance, like all the advantages that my parents have given me by
Mm-hmm.
coming to this country. Like my mother was like so poor growing up in Mexico. Like I just found out yesterday she didn't have refrigeration, like in her little village where she came from. Like didn't have shoes growing up. Now my father was richer where he came from in Cuba, but like they both had to start over when they came to this country. And like I've just done nothing with my life. I'm smiling about it, but also, I feel ashamed. So I'm trying to
You're not
rectify
alone,
that
man.
right now.
You're not alone, dude. Like that is like I would even say, and not in a bad way, that is a cliche. Wouldn't you agree, Wes, that like uh, the immigrant who comes from like the goat farming village, like becomes a city builder, real estate tycoon, but his kids are total fuck ups. And by the way, like your story is my story as well. My dad came from a tiny village in Ireland. His parents were farmers.
Mm,
He went to med school. He worked as a security guard on World Trade Center when they were building it. Like
wow.
while working in the emergency room, me, I failed the New York bar exam 6 times. I've never made more than 60 grand in my life, and so that's part of my origin story too, right? And Wes, that's not uncommon to feel the shame that we haven't lived up to our pioneer forefathers, correct?
Yeah, yeah, and Pablo, I'd love to hear a little bit deeper into your story, and then also I want to respect your boundaries as well. We do post these to YouTube. If you ever don't want them, just let us know. We can take it down. So I'd love for you to share because I know it'll serve a lot of men. But at the same time, I want to make sure I respect your boundaries. So proceed, to the degree that you feel
I,
comfortable.
I appreciate that. I'm familiar with the kind of the culture of your podcast here, so I'm pretty comfortable talking.
Cool.
What do you want to know?
So, I mean, to me, man, just
Your
kind of
journey.
brother to brother, if you don't mind me saying that, right? Like, I know the cliche response to that would probably be, oh man, like, no, you haven't thrown it all away and, you're good the way you are and all that stuff. And I also don't like the opposite of that either. If you've been listening to this for any length of time and the guys here know this, like, I use a lot of negative energy to like propel myself forward. So for me, the way that I hear it is I actually like that you feel a little anxiety or pressure to grow, like the pressure to have received what you've received and to make something of it, despite whether or not you've planted those seeds to date. Right? It's like you still feel that there's, dude, you're young as hell. If you don't mind me asking, how old are you?
I'm 33.
I mean, like having that epiphany, because I work in the wealth management space. I can tell you for sure. I have literal examples of people who've inherited millions of dollars in their 50s and blew it within 2 to 3 years. I could tell you several stories about that. You feeling this way at 33, I know it feels to you like you might be old because you're 100% of your current age, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Like on the
Yes.
grand scope of things, you are not old. So I don't know if you don't mind, go a little deeper in your story, but the way it hits me so far is like I like that you feel like you are called to be more than you are currently.
And you got another
Yeah.
60 years to make good on your parents'
Right.
kind of gamble or investment
Yeah. Okay.
effort.
Well, I think I know where to go next from here. Like my own YouTube channel is the Virgin Martyr Pablo Quinones, and that's a kind of ironic reference to the fact that I was a very late stage virgin, and also a reference to my religion, which was part of the reason why that happened. I grew up like very conservative and religious, and to an unusual degree. Like I was terrorized, really. Almost to the degree of a Jehovah's Witness, but not quite as much. Very apocalyptic in the churches that we went to, and I was just terrified. I learned to be afraid of God, afraid of the world, afraid of my own self. Um, just living in basically like a police state in my mind. Um, so, and the whole virgin thing is like almost a like the marquee issue. Just like you imagine if that somebody has not like reached that milestone by a certain point, they're behind in other areas as well. And it's just kind of the virgin thing is the most easy to understand. It's harder to say, well, I was also late in like making money because there's not like one point where you cross over. It's like now I've made the adult amount of money, for example. But I'm just very late in life. I don't have a career to speak of. I haven't had like a serious relationship. I'm not a virgin anymore, but like I I I haven't have reached a lot of the markers that would be reasonable to expect for a man my age.
Got it. Are you comfortable, Pablo, if we go around and this is like we do roundtables? So it's not advice, and I mean that in a serious way. Like there's an important distinction. It's like, hey, let's go around the table to hear what the other men what comes up for their mind, and then also their perspective. And if any of that's helpful, great. If none of it's helpful, then throw it the hell away. Are you cool with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Fuck yeah. All right, Larry, let me throw the mic over to you. What comes up to you for Pablo's story, and what would you comment in return?
Well, I think it reminds me of being broke, lost my job, divorced, 5-year-old calling me every day, telling me to come home, um, and having to start over at 47, and you're only 33. And I think that it's, I used to listen to stories that other people would share, and I'd go, yeah, that's your life, not mine. You have no idea what I'm going through. And then I began to recognize that we're more alike than different. And the difference is what we choose to focus on. We can get all entangled in the circumstances that aren't positive and that suck. Because I was in a 1 bedroom, I got to get rid of my Jag. I had a pickup truck that was all beat up. It was an old Mazda, and I had every sign of failure relative to where I should have been in my life. And at that point, I recognized that, I'm the only one who can do anything about this. And I can't do anything about this if I continue to focus on everything that's gone wrong. And this, and Pablo, this is what's so amazing is I decided, because I couldn't find a job that we even paid child support. Child support was horrendously expensive at that point in my life. And I decided to go into business for myself. I had no idea how to do it. And an hour later, the phone rings, and I answer the phone, and the guy says, I hear you have your own business. Now, that's like Ray pushing the car, and all of a sudden it's easy to push. How come? Because without knowing it, he opened himself up to allowing others to help. One of the toughest things for men to do is I got to do it myself. I got to do it myself. And the world wants to help, just like that phone call. And here's the difference. If I hadn't have made the choice to go into business for myself, and these guys have heard this story before, and forgive me for telling it again, but if I hadn't have decided to go into business for myself, what would I have said when this guy on the phone says, I hear you have your own business? I would have said, I don't have my own business. And this is what I'm talking about. We miss all the opportunities life hands us by focusing on what's not happening for us. Because now, as far as our brain works, the physiology of our brain, you have just said, seek all the information to prove I'm right about how much my life sucks. And I could get into the science behind why that works and why it's there. It's there so that we can continue to keep the species going. We have to protect ourselves. And you were brought up that, there's an evil God, don't make any mistakes, you'll burn in hell. And you were terrified. And there's a lot of people that are on the way to heaven, but they're not there for the wonderments and the joy. They're out running the flames of hell, licking at their rear end. And so some people just run away from, and others, which we're doing on this group is what are we looking forward to? And you listen, like Phil's story, God, all he did was say, I'm just a bundle of energy, courage, and can handle any friggin' obstacle you throw at me. And yet sometimes we overlook that. Does that make sense? And you start focusing on how I threw my inheritance away. Okay, instead of, well, I threw it away. Now what do I want to obtain? Okay.
And a good part of it is still there. I'm still in this country. I'm still young, and I mean, unlike a lot of people my age, like I don't have a kid or an ex-wife or baggage. Or I don't say baggage, but obligations like that.
Yeah, yeah. And that 5-year-old calling me every day to come home for 4 times a day, 30 days. Every time I picked the phone up, I would start crying. And because I knew I couldn't go back into that relationship because I didn't want my children to grow up thinking that this is what love looks like. And now on Sunday, that little guy who is now 34 is taking me golfing. And somehow he still cares about me. In spite of what I felt I did to him. And I think this whole let go thing, this acceptance and the ability to be vulnerable, to realize we're not perfect, we're going to make mistakes, and then to accept that and be able to kind of be ready for this moment that we all have the opportunity to sit here and listen to one another.
Yeah, I think that's well said, Larry. Phil, let's throw it over to you. What comes up for you from Pablo's story, and what would you comment in return?
So unfortunately, I was busy for a moment during the second half of your story, so I didn't hear the whole thing. But I heard you say you were 33, which is the same age as me, and you sounds like you're feeling at least somewhat similar to me, which is like my situation is like when I was 24, my friend got me a very good job at a software company. And I didn't make the money most people think that software engineers make, but I was making a lot of money for a dumbass who had no college degree and just got a job with very little effort, right? And then I literally just wasted all of my money set for 7 years. For 7 years, it's just crazy to think that I had that job. I could have been very easily, without any effort at all, saving $500 a month. Could have saved more like $1,000 a month easily. And like, it's just insane how much money that is. That's like over $100,000 easily in the bank. And, and I didn't do that at all. I just blew all my money. I would go out to eat constantly. Almost every meal I ate the whole time I worked at that company was takeout. And, that alone is like over $1,000 a month. And, yeah, it's just crazy how much I squandered, and yeah, I'm kind of in the same situation as you, at least a little bit. Like, yeah, I just feel like I'm 33. I knew what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to make video games, 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago, and although I started and I do have some experience, I'm not at zero. I'm pretty far from zero, but I'm very far from where I could easily be if I had just committed myself more, 10 years ago. I could be, pretty experienced right now. And I'm not anywhere near that experienced. And, yeah, it's hard to accept, but, I guess I just try to focus on what I have accumulated, which is not nothing. Whenever I'm helping a friend, like someone who wants to make video games or whatever, and I'll show them stuff or whatever, it's not that uncommon for them to be like you can actually bang the stuff out pretty quick, like if they have an idea, I'm like showing them how, like I'll show them like this is how you can do stuff. You can kind of set stuff up like this, and they'll be like, wow, like you're actually pretty fast at this stuff. It's kind of cool. And I'm like, maybe my narrative is not entirely accurate, that I've wasted all my time. I haven't wasted all my time, even if I haven't worked nearly as hard as I wish I had. I have plenty of things I can start with and places I can go from here.
100%.
Also, just one
Cat,
other
got
thing.
some.
This is really cheesy, actually. But one other thing is, it's super cheesy, but I really still like it. Is this guy named Tim Urban, who's a pretty cool guy, has this amazing. I wish I had the visual right now, but he has this amazing little graph that he made. It's like a little graph where it's like it's like at the beginning of your life where you could possibly go, and there's like all these like spider webs. It's like a tree branching out and out and out of all these places you could go. And then there's a line halfway through. There's a line, and then it says this is where you're at right now, and then the future is the exact same thing. It's like you could go. It's the exact same graph from the start of your life. Could go anywhere. Right now, you could go anywhere. It's cheesy, but it's just nice to remember that.
Yeah.
100%.
Oh, by the way, Phil, I've
100%.
lived in my car off and on for years now. I'm part of the whole religious thing. I'm trying to be a saint and make myself suffer, so I kind of subjected myself to that lifestyle for half out of necessity and half out of desire to self-flagellate.
Honestly, the thing is, other than showering in the gym sucks. I don't like that. But other than that,
really?
the main thing,
$10 a month. Love that.
well, I just don't like how freaking dirty it is. It's freaking disgusting. And it's like, whatever. But other than that, like the main hit is just the people, will look at you like you're a freak. People will be like, why did that guy just get into the back of his car and lay down? Like,
my shame threshold has gone up as well, but also my level of discretion has increased in that time too. I don't think most people notice me anymore.
Yeah.
But thank you for saying what you said.
Yeah, hell yeah. Ray, let's throw it over to you, brother.
Pablo, thank you for sharing your origin story with us. You talked. I heard a lot of trauma in there, and that's cool because that there's trauma in all of our origin stories. And what I thought about was these aren't lost years or wasted years. Being in this religion or this kind of cult or sect that you don't really subscribe to anymore. This is your origin stories, and you carry out of that a bundle of survival skills. Now, some of them are useful, and some of them are an interference now that you have to unlearn. But the point I'm trying to make is like living in your car, being part of a strict upbringing. Like again, because you mentioned you mentioned that you're 33 and you haven't accomplished everything that Jimi Hendrix accomplished by the time he was 33, or Alexander the Great. Of course, like we only choose to compare ourselves to those mythological figures, right? In order to beat ourselves up. And just remember, like you haven't wasted time, or you don't have to look at it as wasted time. I suck. That's your origin story. You have another 60 years on this planet, and I'm okay if you really take off, a third of the way through instead of like I'm okay if your runway is 33 years and you're airborne for the other 60. So like use your origin story, like Wes said, use the negative or the positive, whichever way you want. Use your origin story to shape your positive self-image. Like figure out your values, and I think with your religious training, like mine, like we have a language of values that has been kind of like instilled in us from a early age. We don't have to keep those values, but we have an idea of good behavior, bad behavior that we can start from. Like figure out your values, do the work to figure out your values, do the work to figure out your goals. Wes, in fact, there's an amazing goal setting session called The Program that Wes did on a podcast called Dad Meat, DADMEAT.
Yeah,
misleading name. Okay, and Wes is about to do a version 2.0 coming up in New York that I hope Wes will live stream or at least share. And I think you have all the right ingredients to take off like a jet. Wes?
Yeah, I completely agree. And Phil, I think, packed a little bit of a gem in there that he gave himself credit for, which he rarely does. So, I want to give him credit for that, which is like your brain wants to naturally assume that you are supposed to have made a certain amount of progress by a certain age. And if you're not at that, like what Ray is saying, that, like if you're not Justin Timberlake by the age of 19, right, already, played, multiple roles on Disney or whatever the hell he used to play, then you're a failure. But what you're not giving yourself credit for is you're building up a lot of other stuff. You're just cherry picking the negative stuff right now. So when you were talking, I was looking up the story of Francis Ngannou, the MMA fighter. He's a great example.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy's a freaking tank. If you ever watch his interview on Joe Rogan, it's like the origin story of him is like he worked in like the sand mines or something at the age of 10 and then had to escape, I believe, from Cameroon, almost died multiple times during that. Didn't start fighting until, I think, like in MMA until he was 26, which in that world is like a lot of these guys are training from the age of like 9. Made the same argument up until he became champion, right? Like, oh, well, these guys are way ahead of me and so on. But what was building during that time was his perspective, right? The fact that he licked death multiple times gave him a degree of grit that very few humans ever even get the chance to build. He's building up freaking muscle every day. The guy's a monster. I'm sure you've seen him, right? So all of the invisible muscle and perspective that you're building is building up simultaneously. Now, I do think sometimes like financial success, I've heard this analogy recently and it really stuck with me. Financial success is kind of like a master lock. Unfortunately, it's like a handful of things have to be right for it to be unlocked. But that doesn't mean, so you don't really get to that until all of those 5 things line up. But that doesn't mean that you're not on the 4th or 5th of those right now, if that makes sense. So, man, I mean, I think the fact that you're able to articulate like where you are and give yourself credit and also be a little hard on yourself, which I like. I think there's a Goldilocks zone there. Because I think if you're too positive, I think it can be more delusional and you end up doing nothing because it just feels good to dream all day.
I can't stand that just relentless, pointless positivity. That's one of the reasons why I follow this podcast. And, I like your attitude, which isn't my natural inclination was to be too hard on myself and like to self-flagellate and be negative with no action. But also I don't like the super positive. So I like kind of the way you calibrate that.
Yeah. I mean, I've just found that that's what works for me, right? Like, and like you, I get turned off if it's too like hippy dippy rah rah, like, hey, just like rub these crystals and life will be good. It's like, well, I've been rubbing these crystals for a fucking while now, man. But then on the other side where it's like, well, I'm worthless, why even try, right? It's somewhere now, to be really not critical but honest with myself, I'm a few degrees towards the negative side just because that's what works for me. And Larry's been trying to work with me for a while now, and maybe sometime it'll work. But like little like left towards like the negative, right? But not super negative like that for some reason. I feel like Jordan, Kobe, a lot of guys that I like from a competitive standpoint, they kind of sit between there as well. But hey, man, I'm just here to say, like, for sure, in this like life thing called life with you, it's I guarantee you've away different resources. So have I. So has Phil. So has Larry. So has Ray. So has everyone in the human race. I mean, there's no way we could do justice or pay back for the probability of us being born. There's no way, right? The probability of that is basically zero. Then the fact that we live in fucking America, I mean, that's 4% right now. Like, but that doesn't calculate the probability of living in America today.
Yes, sir. And
than 70 years ago.
And if I can interject there, I'm a valet right now, so a lot of Latin Americans come here. Like the guy I was working with a couple months ago, this man had to be in his 50s, literally was like hiking through the Darien Pass 2 weeks before he was parking cars with me. And just that's the kind of attitude I want to emulate. Just like
Wow.
so he's starting over at whatever 55 years old, or the Turkish people who do DoorDash by the restaurants where I valet at. They're probably a little older than me, and they have like professions, but that they can't practice in this country. But like they just let it roll off their shoulder. And okay, maybe let's say I had completely wasted 33 years of my life. Well, here I am today. Like, start moving.
Yeah, and let me, if you don't mind, let me give you something. Maybe it'll be valuable. So I work in the wealth management space. I've been doing it for 20 years. Blah blah blah. This model, I think about constantly for myself. Still, if financial success is something that you're interested in trying to build on top of, it's super simple. It's literally 4 steps. Number one, and there's no escaping this, right? Like, well, actually, let me pause. Most people confuse for gambling. That's the first error that they make, right? They view investing as some sort of lottery ticket that's going to get them out. Like, throw away that aspiration today. Like, that will not help you, right? But then it's like, then most people, even if they have investing correct, they confuse investing for wealth, right? Like, investing is a part of your wealth journey, not the whole, right? So the whole, at least the way that I see it, is 4 stages. Number one, create value. 100%, right? Like, you will only be as wealthy to what it will be correlated with the value that you have created to other human beings. That is the seed. There is no getting around that. There's a lot of books written out there of like, oh, just don't go spend money on Starbucks and you'll become a millionaire 500 years from now. It's like, well, how about you make $500,000 and it's a lot easier to become a millionaire, right? So the second stage is then charge for that value. And this honestly, so I came from a very, very blue collar neighborhood family, etc. My family, hard workers. What's the problem? They never increased their value, right? Relative to, like, I was a janitor, my uncle was a janitor, and so on. It was just kind of, that's what you were, right? You were at maximum a carpenter, etc. Well, they never escalated from there. So number one, create more value always. Charge for that value. That's stage number 2. There's a thing with my neighborhood and my family of like, oh, I don't want to charge you for that, and so on. Like, it's this bug in their brain, right? Well, if you're not going to charge for your value, then you're never going to make the fucking money, right? Like, and that puts a ceiling on your growth. That is the reality. Now, there's some mental models there that we can use. You can always contact me offline if you want to, but it's like, make sure the value exchange is reasonable. I use a 90-10 payback ratio. So I will do 90% of the work, but I expect to be paid for the 10%, right? But it scales. Okay, third thing is save money from that charge. This is like really important. It sounds super simple, but I know a lot of people who create a lot of value, they make a lot of money, and then they spend it all, right? So all of these are like, you could have leaky pipes here. So make sure you save. I like the 30%, right? I try to save 50% of everything I make, but I like 30% as a really, really good benchmark. 10% if you can't afford the 30, right? Fourth stage is invest in value creation. This sounds so simple, but it's a heuristic to take off the table all of the things that are lottery ticket like, right? You would have a hard time convincing me. I'm not going to say the certain investments names right now because I do have licenses and I can't. But like, we all know there's certain investments out there currently in the ecosystem that sound a lot like lottery tickets. That when you ask people of like, hey, tell me why I should invest in that, they can't tell you anything else than, well, yeah, because Logan Paul did, or whatever, right? Like, it's some version of like, well, he's doing it and therefore I should do it, or she's doing it and therefore I should do it. Invest in value creation. Now, here's the kicker. When you're first starting out, that investing in value creation is probably back to you. As simple as this. Hey, I'm a valet right now. Maybe the $20 that I saved, what if I bought a new shirt? It could be literally as simple as that. When I first started being a caddy, right back in,
bro, I just did that. I invest. This is my personal beret, and this is my work beret.
I love it. I love it.
Bought it yesterday.
And that's the thing, man. Don't rob yourself of all of those milestones along the way. My first investment was when I showed up to be a caddy on day number 1, I showed up in my fucking basketball uniform at the age of 11. That's not okay, right? So the first few bucks I made, I bought a collared shirt, right? So I could show up and actually start making money, right? So and that's part of my story now. That's part of the fabric of the story. Don't rob yourself of that. Don't want to become a millionaire overnight, because then you lack the muscle. Even if you won the lottery, this is why 90% of people who win the lottery go fucking broke in 3 years, independent of the number. So, dude, I'm actually slightly jealous of your story, because like I got to go through my origin story really young, but because of that, I didn't have like even like the hardware to like process a lot of it. Your brain is fully developed. You can now take all of it in. So you're going to have a hell of a story.
Well,
Anyway, I'll shut up there.
Before you get to number 5, because I'm writing each one of these down. What you mentioned to Pablo was that so powerful. And one thing he's got to be aware of is all of these people he's parking cars for probably have businesses, they work for a business, they're very well connected. And what kind of impression are they getting when they experience him? Because that's the value creation. That's what doesn't cost you a dime other than how you show up relative to presence. But it's that smile, it's that listening, it's the interest you take in them that is going to come right back at you. So be careful that you don't develop a blind spot to that. I'm not saying
yes, sir.
You're aware of that, but
yes, sir.
Larry,
And
I remember I was at an art fair once, same kind of thing. I mean, this didn't turn into a job or anything, but I was at an art fair once, which is again same kind of cohort of, uses valet parking, and a guy had a bunch of like sushi and drinks for his table, and I just said, "Let me help you with those," and I brought them over, and he said, "I like your hustle," and when he said that, that was absolutely like the kind of interaction you're talking about, like I'm imagining, I'm manifesting someone saying to Pablo, "I like your hustle." Do you know what I mean? Like, which translates to, I could use someone like you on
100%.
my team.
Yeah.
And Pablo, we might need to, yes, we might need to shave, get haircuts, and get new shirts. I think that might be on the menu for both of us. But I love that. I love that perspective, Larry, because that tells me, like, you never know where God, the universe, whoever is going to present you with an opportunity.
and
So
I've had that. Oh, sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No problem.
And I've had that happen. Like my two main things are like writing and drawing. Like right now, I've been practicing screenplays, and I happen to run into a guy who's also a working professional in that industry. Um, but man, if I could just learn to be a friendlier or like flirtier type of person, God, I would get more money. I would get more people give me random tips. Like right now, I'm like very like yes sir, no sir, have a good day sir, but no fun, no like joie de vivre, no. So the person I almost like am now, I'm not there. I'm just like very stiff, very wooden, polite,
let
but
me
not like.
real quick, Pablo. You are that person. You're just not
I don't see
allowing.
someone wooden.
You're not giving yourself.
Larry, I don't see someone wooden today. I'm not hearing someone wooden today.
I just got to be this person there.
Yeah.
Is what I'm saying.
And here's a tip. You can trigger that by being curious. Find out about these people. Ask questions about them. What do you do? Hey, what a beautiful car. Well, how long have you been involved? How long have you liked this type of automobile? Whatever it may be, but stop focusing on how you're doing and start asking them questions about themselves. They say the greatest way to be successful is to make those around you successful. And so you have that opportunity. You don't have to have anything else going on for you other than putting them first, being interested in them. And then it's the law of reciprocity. What goes around comes around. Now they can't help but be interested in you. Because trust me, the one thing most of us never get is someone who's really interested in us, without manipulation, without wanting anything in return. And when it happens, they're a little bit blown away. And then they want that kind of person around them. And so you'll be amazed that you don't work on the wrong thing, which is, how is my smile right? Am I being infectious? Just get involved in them, and you'll really be amazed at what happens.
And Wes, that I call that creating value.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pablo, if you don't mind me saying, if you want like more tactical stuff, I really, really like the Charisma on Command guys. I actually got coaching from one of the guys, Charlie, on Charisma on Command. I 100% suggest you go to that channel, and they give like actual tactic stuff and go deep into like the analysis. Like they break down human interaction to a degree that I'm actually like, oh, this is what I was looking for. I really like it. So and then I will practice some of those things, like still to this day. So if you're looking for like boots on the ground tactics kinds of things, I would look into that. Another
already
thing
on it, sir.
Love it. Another thing, there's a phenomenal book. The author wrote 3 books. It's like this author is so powerful that Charlie Munger, the now deceased Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's partner, sent Robert Cialdini, who's the author of Influence, Persuasion, and one other book. I forget. Charlie thought that his books were so powerful, he sent him, it was either 1 or 2 shares of Berkshire Hathaway, which is now worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. He just sent it to him because like I've gotten so much value from your books, like here, So I think it was either 1 or 2 shares. If it's a few shares, it's over $1 million, easy. Anyway, in that book was they calculated the data on when a waitress would give a mint after she put the bill on the table, right? I think it increased the tip by like, I forget what it was, 5% or something like that. Then she would put 2 mints on the table, right, for other people. And it increased the tip by like, 8% or 9%. When she would put the mints on the bill and then walk away and then come back and then give a little extra and make a comment like, oh, because you guys are so great, here's a few extra mints, right? Like implying, hey, you're so special. Like, between us, I'll give you some more mints. Apparently increased the tip by 30%, right? Just things like that. So I'm thinking about in your line of work, if you're a valet, I don't know if it's mints. I don't know if it's carrying a clean linen napkin in your back pocket, and when you get out of the car, you wipe off the handle or so. I have no idea. But like those things there. So not only the personality thing, but the tangible, like I'm giving you the extra little thing. I'd be shocked if you don't increase your tips by 30, 40%. Shocked if you can figure out that little extra piece.
And I keep track too. I mean, I got a little notebook where I'm keeping track cars, number of tips, make notes on like what worked, what didn't, et cetera, et cetera. It's small. I mean, the potential for making a lot is kind of capped, but I mean, while I'm here, I might as well practice that discipline of taking notes, customer service, and just trying to make the most of a modest situation.
Oh, dude! I think one thing that's definitely very easy to me, it seems like, is anyone who has a flashy car is really excited to talk about it. And I like cars legitimately, so it's not like I'm just like messing with them or whatever, or trying to force a conversation. Like if someone owns a sick Porsche and you just comment on it, they'll be happy about it. It's very easy.
Yeah, that's something
they're not going to stop talking.
Yeah, that's something I should develop. Like I'm not really a car guy, and it's a shame because I get to drive a lot of cool ones. But I mean, I might as well learn about them while I'm there. Like, I mean, it's pretty upper middle class where I go, and we get like a few times a month get like a McLaren or a Rolls Royce.
McLaren, that's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not driving them any further than 100 feet, but it is pretty cool to
I would
be able to say.
Scared to drive a McLaren. Those things are so expensive. Oh my.
Hey Pablo, if you can also, hey man, my name's Pablo. What's yours? Get that written down in your notes. Next time that car comes back, and you're able to say, "Hey Ray, good to see you again." You just added about 30 to 40% to your tip. Most important word in the English language to all of us is our own name. So, man, you're talking now about some of the things that most people overlook. And
I have an older valet who I used to run with, and he always did that. And I just was never really friendly enough, and I just didn't care. I just
yeah,
didn't see, I guess maybe didn't even see my own humanity. But honestly, just in the interest of getting more tips, I started doing what he did. And I liked it better. I mean, it's more profitable, but also it's just like I'm a person, you know.
yeah,
I'm not just the valet now. I'm like Pablo the valet. And like, oh, he's this kind of guy. I think he'll take care of my car. Or and we can treat each other more like people than just me. I'm like a lowly valet. It's just okay, maybe I am, but I'm
No,
still a man.
no, you're flipping.
Um,
no, man. That's right. I'll push against you there. I've heard recently. I've never been to Japan, but I've heard one of the cultural aspects of Japan is like each person is expected to be a craftsperson of their craft. It doesn't matter where it lands in this like invisible hierarchy. It's like if you're a valet, if you're a janitor, if you're a CEO of a company, it doesn't matter. It's like, do you take your craft seriously and knowing that you are to deliver value to another human at that interaction? And dude, I think Phil spot on. Dude, Phil, I think that was so profound of like, I wonder what would happen if the guy gets out of a McLaren, whatever, blah, 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 and you know that it's a McLaren, blah, 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 and you give a compliment and you say, like, oh, yeah, I really like this McLaren, da, 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 as well. Like in that 10 seconds of interaction that you have, I think Phil is freaking spot on. 100%.
Hey, what's number 5 before I have to take off? And
Oh,
well,
there's only four.
oh, there's only 4. Well,
Yeah, Wes, can you wrap this up? Like, we're all dying to go to the bathroom, dude.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We'll just keep going.
Ray, you can go. You can go, Ray. It's all right.
You, me, like, you, me, and Pablo travel with a bathroom in our car, right? Pardon me, guys.
yes.
uh,
All right, dude.
Make sure to keep
I
a bottle
love
in
you
that
guys.
car, Phil.
Yeah, man.
I love you guys. Pablo, hey, man, it was an honor having you on, brother.
This was outstanding.
It's an honor to speak to you. I did not expect to get on. It's like I'm talking to like a famous person right now.
Okay, boys? Let's do it all again on Monday.
Dude, thank you, brother. And Pablo, I promise you, I won't let Ray cut you off in the future. He just has that issue every once in a while. So,
hey, really quick, Pablo, are you in the Discord? I didn't see you join.
I did. Yeah, I was the one who
okay,
posted
cool.
the chess picture.
Oh, okay, cool. What's your name on there?
Pablo.
Oh,
I think
okay,
is
all
my
right.
name.
Oh, cool. All right, cool.
yeah. And if you guys are having trouble, because Kyle did a real good job of like organizing the Discord, putting up some structure and boundaries there. Some people might have trouble. So we communicate mainly through the huddle part of there. So if you guys have trouble, just let Kyle know or myself know. Also, I want to apologize. I was having my Rhomas emails forwarded to my personal Gmail, but for some reason it's not going through. I just noticed this yesterday. So a bunch of you guys have sent me emails. I'm so sorry. I literally didn't see them until yesterday. I'm going to start to respond there. So Kyle, if you're listening, if you wouldn't mind helping me connect that, for some reason the connection broke. So anyway, dudes, I love you guys. Have an outstanding weekend. Pablo, man, great having you on, brother. Later.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Strong hat game, Pablo. Every man
Thank
needs a
you.
work beret and social beret, man. Bravo.
We've only scratched the surface.